1, 2, 3, 4.
And welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Breakfast with Brothers.
What's good, everybody? Glad to see you. Glad to hear from you. Glad to know you're good. Glad to know you're great. Glad to know you're excellent. Anyway, we're back, like Ian said. No guests today. Sorry. We just got put you guys on to a long one, so classic half hour. What are we talking with the people today about?
We're talking about the moon landing today.
Oh!
The first. Well,
The
I
one
guess
that people continually
yeah.
try to tell us that's fake, etc. I land on the side of I think the moon landing is real. I think Ian's on the same side as well.
I think it's tough to really decide, as like people kind of like give ideas into how it could be fake, because some of them could be convincing, some of them are also not very convincing. I'd like to believe we landed on the moon. I think that would be really cool. And
Same.
if it's true, that makes it even cooler, you know?
Also same.
But we will deliberate right now and let you guys know what we think. How does that sound? Good? Great. All right.
No choice. No choices.
Yeah, they don't get any choice. I mean, truthfully, the choice they have is to listen to us. But if they're already here, they tapped on the episode, that's it. You have no choice now.
So I guess for me, I'm probably just going to think about all the things that people try to reason with the fact that it's a fake landing and then say otherwise. The one that was most recent that I'm thinking of off the top of my head is Buzz Aldrin came out saying that the entire landing was a hoax and that everything was filmed and they had a movie studio set up and everything like that. And the source that I found it from was not reliable at all. Probably the farthest from reliable I could find. And in this case, I'm also thinking about, had I seen it from a reliable source or something, whether or not it was maybe a Buzz Aldrin deepfake, maybe they just posted something that somebody wrote, and then they just put Buzz Aldrin's name at the end of it or something like that. Because I'd like to believe Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong were both two people who were happy to, explain and debunk everyone's theories about how it was fake. And that's the only reason I think that, it's a complete wash of what Buzz actually said. I really do think between him and Neil that they would, be happy to try to debunk everyone.
Yeah, I could have sworn I've seen like videos of Buzz talking about it, stating how it was completely real and nothing was faked whatsoever. But I think like a good question, and we literally talked about this yesterday, not me and Zach, but some of my friends here, a buddy of ours, McLean, was saying like, how do they deal with like the broadcast? Like, how do they broadcast from the moon when they're, the communications was already extremely hard to consider going all the way to the moon.
Sure.
So like radio frequencies work to some extent if that's how they did it. I would assume that's how they did it. But how are they broadcasting? How are they getting a clip of it? Because at the time it was live, wasn't it? It was live over like radios and broadcast networks. Wasn't it?
I thought that the famous video, of him getting off of the shuttle and then walking and then planting the flag was all in post. Like, I thought that was video footage that they took while they were there and then brought back with them type thing. Because I'm pretty sure, like you were getting on with the, the radio transmissions and stuff. I'm pretty sure that's all we were getting at the time of the actual landing itself. Now, I don't know, maybe you could Google fact check that, but as far as I know, I'm thinking about the one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, that thing. I think that was the transmission that was coming through when they landed, and then video was in post.
This is what I just found right now. Yes, the Apollo 11 moon landing was televised live. The mission was the first manned mission to land on the moon, and the first live broadcast of the event took place on July 20th, 1969. The first few steps were broadcast live from a camera on the lunar module. The transmission signal to Earth included 3 sets of black and white images and a synchronizing pulse. The signal was sent by satellite from 3 receiving ground stations to Houston and sent by microwave relay to New York, where it was broadcast live to the United States and the world. The video was degraded by the long and noisy analog transmission path, and each link added additional noise and distortion to the signal. I guess it's possible, but truthfully, it seems like it's, I would say, well before its time. But then we also have to realize, too, that the military and the government have things like 5 to 10 years in advance before like the public gets it.
Right. Plus, I'm also thinking about those gigantic satellite towers that they had that were able to transmit. They were basically able to capture anything. I'm thinking about where they were at when they started taking in random frequencies from places further than the moon. You know, when they were taking in recordings that were what they assumed to be life forms from another planet or maybe other galaxies or something like that. I don't know when all that started. I'm sure it was shortly thereafter of, moon landing excitement.
I'm sure that was probably around like the Roswell crash landing of the whatchamacallit, the green people out there.
Yes,
I would
the green
assume
funky ones.
Yeah, I would assume around when that happened is probably when the craze started, and then they started looking into it. I'm sure there was, who knows? I'm sure there was research done before that, but I don't think really anything popped up and was crazy until that happened.
But regardless, based on the ability of these people to think outside the box, and then also they were not living with a life full of distractions. They didn't have cell phones. Most households, if they had a television, it was, that little, I don't know what you would call that, maybe 8x8
boob
screen
tube.
that's in a giant, oven-looking box sitting in your living room.
Nice little boob tube. Gonna go watch the boob tube.
Right, and then otherwise, newspaper, tabloid, stuff like that. But otherwise, it was, you had to learn things and remember them. A lot of memorizing. And then also, as much as you put into it as far as work and research and stuff like that, the people who were a part of the NASA team were, some of the smartest people alive at the time. You know how the saying goes that it's not rocket science or whatever? Those people knew of rocket science. So I'd say their collective brain power in that room, in that station, was probably something that a lot of people overlook, thinking about the capability. They always talk about that the computer that they had at NASA was the equivalent of like a TI-84 calculator that we use now to do geometry and stuff like that. But that's far too. I'd like to think that whatever capability they needed to put into a spaceship and then also have relays and frequencies on, what would you call that? Home base. It was something that was able-bodied. They didn't just throw some wires together and were like, all right, let's get lucky. And they sent the ship up there. Like, this was well-planned, thought out, very thorough.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. I mean, maybe on the standpoint of like having like technology and the sense of computers and such, maybe they were, I shouldn't say maybe. They were definitely more like mechanically based. So, of course, like things that they were comfortable with up until like the electronics portion of it, where like, the technology gets a little bit more complex, may have been a smaller portion rather than the mechanical portion, which is, this much more.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's all possible. Like, I can see it truly like happening. It's just the question now, it's whether or not the government really, or I should say NASA, really put forth and like actually did this. I would hope they did. They even have that movie about the women who worked within NASA. What is it called? I'm gonna think of it, but it's a very good movie if you haven't seen it.
With Kevin Costner.
Yes, and the man who played Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory, he's also in that movie. I can't remember the women who played in those roles. I can't remember their names right now, but very good movie nonetheless. It was about like the black women that were working within NASA that did not get any recognition, and then pretty much did all the calculations. The complexities of all of this. It was a phenomenal movie. Definitely recommend watching it. I'll have to think of the title, but yeah. Either way. I think it's quite honestly possible that this could have happened, but I believe there are certain things that like it's like, okay, I could see how that's a little hard to believe. Like some people make comments about like the flag itself where there's the ripples in it when they staked into it, staked into the moon. Or the fact of like, oh, how did they get like that golf cart type vehicle up to the moon as well? And it's like, I remember seeing like, what are they called? I guess the packaging for it, that it was pretty much a small package as big as the biggest part that had to stay intact, that pretty much you opened up and it was like just like framing. It was all like framing that was for this vehicle that they could take up there. So all of these things that could like culminate to the idea that the moon landing wasn't real, sure, could be possible, but it's also pretty possible in the fact that we could have gotten to the moon.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, also at the time we were giving China a run for their money, during their moon travel experience. So I guess also in part the idea of the space race probably pushed the U.S. to, get up off their butt and try something here too. And not that I'm saying that competition is what fueled, the United States to get up to the moon or anything, but I think with who they were battling against, it, lit a fire under their butt in a new dimension. Now, with that being said, since China also got up there, I don't know who else on their end of things would have said, hey, this, that, the other was fake. We didn't do this and that. But I'm sure for every person that could speak about the U.S.'s doing, there is another whole group of people who could speak about it with the Chinese. And that means you would have to disprove not only our moon landing, but you'd also disprove, China getting up there for the first time. Now, I don't know if that was broadcasted. I don't know what their missions were called or anything. I don't know what their whole idea behind that was. I'm not Chinese. I'm not representing them right now. But again, that's just another thing where it was like, okay, well, great. Now you went through this, that, and the other to say this about the moon landing for what U.S. did. But what about the Chinese? Did they also fake it? Did they also figure out A, B, and C just like U.S. did? Like, where's your proof about that one? So
truthful.
It's just one of those things, dude. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm uncertain of whether or not they could have. I'm also uncertain of our own government, but that's another story. I'm not getting into that. I think there's a lot of things that they could hide from us. I think this could be like a thing that could have been a front for the space race at the time, to say that we were the better country, so they essentially made a deep fake themselves and proved it in that sense. It's very well possible that there could have been something else going on that allowed us to do this, or made us get to that point to do it. So who knows? Truthfully, it's up in the air. The only answer we would get would be from directly from the government or directly from NASA if they actually did it. I'd like to believe they did it. I think just something of that nature would definitely be something that I would like to be true. Especially with all the men and women that put time and effort into getting us up there, if it was indeed truthful.
That's what I'm saying. For everyone that's saying otherwise, you're just like, you just shit on everyone's integrity, that dealt with the mission, that were doing the calculations, that were there, putting the machines together and setting up the electronics to, actually have the ship function and stuff like that. And then forget about all the people, that were on the ground, taking care of stuff. Like, now you're shitting on the astronauts, dude. Like, what does that say about you? And that's the thing, too. Like, this was in 1969. We weren't trying to make up a story to battle the Great Depression, because that happened, 20, 30 years previous. We weren't trying to, in your case, we'll just say, for example, the only thing we were trying to do was battle China in a race to the moon. So in this case, it wasn't, like, I don't think there was anything to be hidden in 1969. There wasn't anything coming up crazy that had just happened. At least
Right.
not that I could think of off the top of my head. I mean, no, nothing. I mean, can you think of anything that would, I know there's been plenty of things that happened within the last decade, 2 decades, what have you, that the government could happily cover up, or they could, put a halt to certain people talking, maybe adjust, what comes out from a whistleblower's perspective, and they throw out left and right just excuse after excuse and stuff like that. But in this specific case, the only one that comes to mind is just the fact that they were in a race against China. That's all I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, quickly though, I did find the name of the movie, Hidden Figures.
What was it?
Came out, Hidden Figures.
Oh, okay.
Came out in 2016. Very good movie. But we'll come back. Let me come back.
Yeah.
At the time, it was the Cold War. Everyone was had missiles pointed at each other between, I guess, what is that? Cuba, Russia, and at the time, I don't think China was too heavily against us. But then, as time passed through, then it was more of a focus on China as well. But I believe it was Russia and Cuba were the main focus, the main worry, because of, again, hidden spies coming from Russia and, of course, our lovely man down in Cuba.
Yep.
There's a joke for those who didn't get that. So I guess it could be a litany of things that truly... I just don't see how it could be false. That's really all it is. It's
yeah.
It's hard to say that it's not. And it's easy to say, all of these conspiracy theories, but then when you truly think about them, it's yeah, sure, there could be some fakeness to it, or very hard to believe in the extent of what you're looking at in the broadcasting. To me, I thought the broadcasting portion would be something kind of difficult to have live from the moon to the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And that still is a little hard for me to grasp, because it's you're just such a distance away, that even at the time, I don't even know if the government had true technology to be able to kind of conduct that broadcast. But maybe they did. Like I said, I think it's truthfully 20 years that the government will have something before the public gets it. So if that's the case, then they would have the technology to do that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at too. And not that I'm completely with the government, withholding stuff like that. Maybe in some cases it's for the better. In this case, for them to send some people to the moon and make an accomplishment for the country, that is something I'm not mad about by any means. I'm not going to ridicule them or what have you. And like you said earlier, we don't need to get into their qualms of the future, mistakes they've made, paths they've chosen, choices they've made, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's one of those things where if they did have the technology and they were that far ahead, then what would be the point of faking it? It sounds like everything was pre-planned, set up, so that way they could go to the moon and, conquer this feat. In this case, it was a space race. They wanted to get there before China. And then also to be able to plant a flag, say, hey, we did this. If we can conquer, this, that, and the other on Earth, then why can't we conquer the moon too? Now, I don't know. Maybe that's just very my member is bigger than yours type talk for the U.S., in this specific scenario. But I think with that in mind too, that's all the more reason to think that the U.S. would, put every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears into it that they could to be able to make the moon landing happen. But
right,
maybe that's just too far fetched. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, anything's on the table. Of course, we know that the government withholds stuff from us. Even in state and point of the fact that they hold things for 20 years, any technology that they learn or have or gain is then given to the public 20 years later. To some extent, I understand why they do that for the safety of individuals. Look at AI now. It's kind of ravaging ravaging our technology as we know it right now in some circumstances.
Right.
Different topic, but similar idea. I don't know. To me, I feel like I would be doing a disservice to the people who did truly work on it, because even if they were faking it, I felt like
Yeah.
there was still some validity to those that are working within NASA. I feel like they're still doing a job, still doing these calculations. Is that all a farce as well? Like, was that not true? So if all these people put in this work unknowingly to the point where they just deep faked all of this and just recorded it, like the Red Hot Chili Peppers said, in a Hollywood basement. Shout out RHCP, love them. If that's the case, then what were all these people doing if they were working at NASA? Because obviously they were employed.
Yep.
There has to be records of them being hired and doing work or something of that extent. So are we just going to cast all of them aside and say that they didn't do anything and all of their efforts were for nothing?
No, could not.
I just feel like that would be a disservice to the people who did truly work on it. And if they thought they were working on it, I feel bad for them if it was all just a fake or a farce.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess maybe in that point, to feed into the side of the fake landing, that all these people could have been paid off, or they could have just been set on missions. Like, hey, this is what your duty's going to be for the next. Now, I don't know how long they were prepping for this, shuttle launch or anything. We'll just say somewhere in the ballpark of 5 years, I guess. In this case, we'll just say that they brought on.
I give or take 5 or 10 years. Yeah,
they brought on a surplus of employees within that time frame. Half a decade or so, up to the point of 1969, like July or something like that, whatever you said it was. And in this case, that would have been, like you said, a lot of work to do nothing. And just to hire all these people, just to bring employee after employee in, people who are specialists in their field, whether it be rocket science. I'm sure there was a lot of theoretical physicists that were there too. And then there were also some of the upper level mathematicians to be able to do, I'm sure there was a lot of theoretical
astrophysicists, logicians, theoretical theoretical physicists, engineers of every variety, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm terrible with remembering all these big names, but truthfully, some of the brightest minds in America, I'm sure, were working there when it came to physics and math, and even logic in some standpoints.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to also have a government backing budget, setting up everything to be able to, I guess in part, NASA, whatever funding they were getting from the government was getting paid out to employees, but then to also put money into the project itself for materials to build it, and then to also pay people like the astronauts that were going up into space. I mean, it just seems like a lot of extra time, effort, and thought, and then to go and deepfake it just seems like a bit too far of a stretch. Like, I don't think these people were just there for nothing. Like, that work was done. The numbers, in the most simple sense, the numbers were figured out. Everything was calculated. And then after that, like you said, all the engineers who actually built the damn shuttle to get up there, I mean, that was a feat in itself. So, and that shuttle, it's not like that shuttle was fake. The shuttle was real. Watching the shuttle launch, real. I mean, and you can even see televised launches today, too. And yes, there's a lot more technology in today's ships as far as like being able to recover certain materials, also keeping in mind the people that they're sending in them, protecting their lives, and then also, well, I'm sure a lot more jet fuel to be able to propel these much bigger rockets and shuttles into space. So everything on a downsized scale, just, whatever that was, 50 years ago now, 60 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, think about the paneling they had on some of these shuttles. I saw a video of like one of the tiles like being heated up.
Yeah.
To I don't even know what degree, but that it was just literally glowing orange, but it held its shape completely.
Yeah.
Like it was brought to that boiling point for whatever material it was. It was literally glowing orange, but it wouldn't be malleable, however you might say that, malleable at all. It just retains the heat, and as soon as it's pulled out, it just essentially just the orange glow starts receding, and it returns to its normal coloring. It's actually quite impressive how, these panels, or these tiles, I think they're called tiles, on the space shuttle are completely, was it impervious? I wouldn't say impervious. I wouldn't say they couldn't take anything. But how much they can take on this shuttle launch, how much
Sure.
heat is being conducted on the outside of the actual spacecraft. It's very impressive, very cool. But truthfully, yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you guys all think? Do you think the moon landing was fake? Do you believe it to be real, or do you believe it to be fake, or do you believe it to be, you don't know?
Yeah, this would be a
Truthfully.
good one to get some feedback about. I know we don't talk a lot about controversial opinions all the time. I mean, I'm thinking back about a couple episodes, like speaking about fast food or golf or music. There's not a lot of heavy controversy there. A lot of opinions you could have, but this moon landing thing is one of those where you could have like a little discussion, and obviously it doesn't propel you anywhere. You're not going to make money talking about the moon landing. It's nothing, to go and tell your parents about an exciting weekend or whatever, but it's just one of those topics that always seems to come up, and people will just happily talk about it. It was like, oh, what about this? What about this? No, no, no. Oh yeah, what about this? What about this? So bring your ideas. Show them on our table, because we want to be able to flip over every card and see what everyone thinks.
Yeah, but by no means is this like a mind-body problem where like people are still asking that question till today. Ever since Descartes brought it up back in the 1600s or something like that. But, this is just a nice little thing to think about, bring up, see what you think. We'd like to hear what you guys think. Like we've stated, we believe it to be real. We'd like to believe that it is real. And we hope it is. But if you guys think it's fake, if you have any good retorts to what we might have stated, or any other concepts or ideas that people have been talking about, I know there's a bunch out there. There's also like with new, today's like rockets and such, people talk of the firmament. That's whole other conspiracy. Is somewhat of like an outside layer that we cannot like break through. I'm not going to get into that.
I know there's always some theory about Earth's gravitational pull, and the further you get away, the harder it is to break through the spheres or whatever. I know that as you layer up, going to the stratosphere, and I guess the atmosphere is the generality of all the spheres contained, but so the firmament is what people are worried about, huh? Now, I mean, I know Elon and his SpaceX projects and stuff like that have not turned out to be the most thrilling, exciting news or anything. I mean, but I don't know, different time, different place. And I also wasn't really into what Elon was doing. Like, I'm not really sure where he was sending these rockets. I'm not sure what he was going for. I know Mars might have been on the map as well. But I'd have to look more into what SpaceX was doing, and maybe even in partnership with NASA. I don't know what NASA has done, since their last launch or anything. So I don't know. I mean, I'll probably be looking into, the whole Apollo 11 mission some more, just trying to see what information all is out there. I'd like to see if I can get my hands on like even a base like version of the broadcast or something like that. I mean, because I'm sure people have been nitpicking, what the source of that broadcast, and then also, nitpicking like the voices of the astronauts, because obviously you can't see their faces. So at the time, I'm sure people are wondering if it is actually Buzz and Neil and stuff like that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, it could be anything. I've been saying truthfully a lot. I got to take that out of my vocabulary for the rest of the last like minute or two that we have of this podcast. But it really could go either way. And like, yeah, I have no idea what Elon's really doing, like what his main goal is. Like he's stated before that he wants to, his end goal is to essentially colonize Mars
Right.
at the beginning. That's what he stated, and now it seems to have gone somewhere. I don't know where it's gone. And now it just seems like he's launching rockets into the sky, and that's about it.
He was just blasting ships up there.
Yeah, I mean, even with NASA, you don't hear too much information about them anymore unless you're looking for it,
Right.
Or you're keeping up with them yourselves, like, looking for this information. So yeah, I think it's just a different time, like you were saying. A lot of people have found interest in other things. A lot of people find interest in just, celebrity drama, and that's all they really watch, or these reality TV shows. And not hating on anyone. Trust me, I have my fill of reality TV shows. But, people have found other interests, and maybe it's, maybe because we've done all these things, or the fact that people do believe that the moon landing was real, that there's nothing more that we can do currently until we find and hear about, say, like Elon Musk finally gets a colony started on Mars. Then it's like, oh wow,
whoa.
I'd like to keep up with that, and I'm gonna stick in for the broadcasts.
Yeah.
I just don't know if we'll ever get back to something to that stature, because I remember Dad telling us, like, he remembers, like, listening to the broadcast on, like, a radio or watching it on TV, whichever it was. Like, he was sitting there listening, and, like, everyone in the U.S. was watching that at the same time. I don't know if we'll ever get back to, like, something of that nature.
Time will only tell, buddy. And time is also telling us that we're wrapping up here, and hoping and waiting and wanting your opinion about our thoughts on the moon landing. Please bring any and all. And of course, ideas for more episodes. Love hearing from you guys if we can get it. Stay tuned for more, because we'll be back next week on your regularly scheduled breakfast. So,
yes, we're moving back into our regular scheduled programming. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Like Zach said, please leave a comment. We love hearing from you guys. Let us know what we could talk about. Let us know some opinions about the episode, like today. Like, let us know what you think about it. Let us know what comments, what info, whatever you got. Lay it on us.